Hi, it's Becky with A Better Way to Homeschool, and I am so excited to be with you here again today. I have a special guest, a special treat, and I could not be more excited. Now, some bookkeeping things. The way that this program works, if you want to comment and you want me to be able to see your name, you need to kind of agree to whatever that StreamYard thing says. It's free, it's easy, and that way I can see who's commenting, who's asking questions. So without further ado, today we're talking about homeschool goals and how they can help you overcome that overwhelm, sitting looking at curriculum, trying to figure out what it is you're supposed to teach. And I have a very special guest with you, or for you today. Her name is Laina, and she's with Triangle Homeschool Resources. And I could not be more excited. Laina and I met bloggers, and we met in a blogging group. And I quickly fell in love with her heart because we're kindred spirits in the homeschool world when it comes to this thing about goals and versus curriculum, which we'll get to. But before we do, I would like to have Laina explain a little bit about who she is. I know she's an amazing blogger and a mom, but I'd love for you to tell us about you just a little bit, Laina. So first of all, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to join you today. And so I'm in North Carolina currently. I've been homeschooling for 10 years. Our kids are almost 16, 13, and 3. So we've been at this, since my oldest was in kindergarten. And kind of came at it as a reluctant homeschooler, I guess I would say. It was not in the plan to be doing this long term, and now I can't imagine having done it any other way. So yeah, that's our family and where we're at.
That's exciting. I got tricked into homeschooling. My husband said, "Oh, give it a try just for a year, do your best, and at the end of that first year, you can quit."
Right? Yeah.
He knew me. He knew I was going to love it. He knew I was going to love that watching the light bulbs come on as the kids are learning. And I had this one of my, I have 5 sons. So you have 3 boys and girls, right?
Pardon?
You have boys and girls, right?
I do. I have boys as bookends and my girl in the middle.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
And if it looks like I'm writing notes, it's because I'm a slow learner. So I'm taking notes as I go. Hey, if anybody wants the freebies or notes that are going to come later, you just put that in the comments. But my husband tricked me. And then I remember one of my favorite memories as a homeschool mom is my now 15-year-old, when he first began learning to read. We were reading this story that had the word love laced all through it. And every time he would say the word love, he would go, and then he would hug me and he would kiss me. And I remember thinking, oh, I wouldn't give this up for the world.
Yeah.
So anyway, amazing. Now, you're a blogger. No, you can't. And okay, so you're a blogger and you're at Triangle Homeschool Resources. Tell me a little bit about that corner of the internet.
So I started a website about a year ago, and my focus was really to help connect local homeschoolers in the Triangle area here in North Carolina to resources, kind of especially new homeschoolers. North Carolina is a really easy state to homeschool in, considering. So, all things considered. So, but it can be confusing. And I think our state's website is excellent, but it really helps to hear it from another mom who's been there, who's done it. And I realized that I used to do the intake calls for our support group where new homeschoolers would call with their questions and, we're moving to North Carolina. How do I get connected? And I'd take those calls and I'd talk to people for hours, like totally neglect my kids and talk
Right.
to people forever. And I'd get off the phone like so jazzed about it. And my kids are like, oh my gosh, mom, you must have been talking to a new homeschooler again.
Right.
And I just loved it. So I decided I took some of the information that I've been using in my introduction to homeschooling webinars and seminars and put it on the internet. And now I'm just kind of reaching out and getting to know local homeschoolers. But like you said, in that blogging group that we're a part of, I found so many great resources that, there's just a lot out there to share. And it's been fabulous. So,
Well,
yeah.
and so when I was chatting with you before,
Mhm.
what I love is that you and I come from the same perspective, because I think we started similarly when we jumped in.
Sounds like it, yeah.
When I jumped into homeschooling, so I think this is what you were saying too. I jumped into homeschooling. I had all the curriculum and I had all the different kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, page 17 of science, page 42 of history, lessons 4 through 6 of math,
Right.
this many language sheets, this many Bible sheets, this many science experiments, and my brain started to smoke, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm a complete and total failure because I can't figure out how all these parts and pieces go together
Right.
to be this homeschool thing, because me just bringing homeschool into the house, but making it like public school at my kitchen table wasn't working.
Right. No. And that is where so many of us come into this homeschooling, unless you've known from the time, you got out of the school system, or unless you were homeschooled yourself, most of us come at it just, oh my gosh, I have to do something different. But all we know is that institutionalized public schooling or formalized schooling system. So we think it's got to be like that somehow. But homeschooling is totally different. And yeah, you're right. I kind of came into it. We moved to North Carolina after we started homeschooling. So where we came from, I wasn't happy with the school district situation. My oldest was super shy, and even in preschool, he was just already kind of being just left to his own devices because the teacher knew he knew what he was doing, and she didn't really engage with him very much because he didn't need help. And I thought, and he was super frustrated with preschool because he loved dinosaurs, like a lot of 4-year-olds. And I don't know whether he expected like the paleontology program at Yale or what, but he was so devastated that they did not talk about dinosaurs enough in preschool. And that was not satisfactory to him. And he declared school was stupid and boring and he didn't want to go anymore.
Perfect.
So,
I completely agree.
Yeah. So I thought, what am I going to do? So I thought, okay, my brother actually mentioned to me, why don't you think about homeschooling, just till you guys get in a better place. And so I thought, okay, I can't mess up kindergarten, right? Especially because I knew he was already really well prepared for it from a good preschool. So I thought, okay, well, I can't mess up kindergarten. We'll do kindergarten, and then we'll move on and we'll move somewhere better, a better school district. And so we did kindergarten. And then we moved to North Carolina. And here in the Raleigh area, we have year-round schools. And it was super confusing to me because you can opt for a year-round school, or you can opt for a traditional schedule, or you can opt for a magnet school. I had no idea which end was up. So we rented for a while, moved. By the time we bought our house and settled here, I was already homeschooling 2 children. So my daughter was kindergarten, first grade age. And when it came time to register for school the next year to get them back on what I thought was on track, I didn't want to. And it was just working so well. We were all enjoying it. We loved the lifestyle.
Right.
But, it wasn't all sunshine and roses either, because I was still in the mindset that, okay, he's in 2nd grade, she's in kindergarten, they have to be doing X, Y, Z. And, we have these beautiful fall and springs here in North Carolina.
Mhm.
When winter was warm, which was new to us being from, the Great White North. So um, we took advantage of it, and we'd miss so many days of curriculum, and we'd get to the end of the year and I'd be like, oh, actually we'd get to February and I'd realize how far behind we were, and I'd be
Right.
frustrated, and I'd start calling schools to find out how do I get them in school. And I'd start panicking, and then I'd be all ready to sign them up for the next year. And then May would come and I'd look back on our year and I'd be like, oh, but I love spending time with them so much. I don't want to, I don't want to give that up.
Oh, I love your heart.
And it finally occurred to me that I was just looking at it all wrong. That if I stayed in this traditional school mindset and my goal every year was to get through that grade, I was going to fail every year, because this isn't a grade. This is a homeschool. This isn't a classroom with, a scope and a sequence. These are my two kids that
Right.
have their own desires and their own abilities and have their own pacing. And,
Right.
we were learning things as a family. So having two kids 2 years apart, we do as much together as we possibly can. So of course, he wasn't going to be in everything second grade level, and she wasn't going to be doing everything kindergarten level, because they were doing a lot together.
Right.
So, it finally clicked that so many of these goals that we come into.
Wait, that's the magic word right there.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Goals. Okay.
Right. So many of these goals we set for ourselves every year when we go into homeschooling are just really a product of the only education we knew. And, getting through a curriculum or getting through a particular scope and sequence don't have to be the big things. They're tools. We need to use them as tools along the way and not the ultimate destination.
Right. Now I call them, okay. So after that first year, in that first year where I was freaking out, when I started homeschooling, when we officially were at home, and when I do this, it's because somebody somewhere on the internet is talking about me and it makes my nose go crazy. We were sitting. So when I first had all the kids at the table, I had a fifth grader, a kindergartner, a preschooler, and I was pregnant with number 4. And just to make it interesting, I can't walk when I'm pregnant. So I was completely overwhelmed. And I'm like freaking out, obviously a little bit on the hormonal side, and having a heart attack. And my husband said, Becky, you need goals. And I was like, oh, I think you might be right about that. So we took a week or two, because I was overwhelmed and it took me that long, to come up with what we call our master homeschool goals. And we've never wavered on them. So do you have master homeschool goals? Have you ever done that?
We do. And they've been refined, because when we first started homeschooling, like I said, I really did not intend to do this long term. But I did read a book, and I really wish I could remember exactly what book it was, but, and it had, it said, set your long-term goals. Like, what do you want to get out of homeschooling? And the way I looked at that was, what do I want to get out of homeschooling that's different from traditional education? So I wrote those things down, and but just kind of put them away, because I thought, well, I just need to keep them on track with the school system, so that when I'm done with this homeschooling thing, they can go back into school and they didn't miss a step. So, but yeah, I mean, those were the things that we started out with, and we thought, character was really important to us, and we wanted our kids to be self-sufficient, in that they had some traditional skills of being able to take care of themselves, and outside of maybe a regular job. So when, the economy goes bad, they have something to fall back on, or what have you. We wanted them to know who they were, to be proud of their own abilities and work hard at the things that are harder for them. So there were definitely things like that we jotted down, and I kind of put it away. And it wasn't until we realized that, yeah, we're in this for the long haul, that we pulled it back out and really kind of refined it. And now I have, I should have brought it with me, but I have a notebook that I call Mom's Master Book.
Ooh.
And it really does have like all the masters of printables and stuff that I use, but also our schedules and plans. But in the very front of that book is, our long-term, ultimately where we headed goals. And they kind of get broken down year by year. And, long-term, and where do we need to be by X, Y, and Z. And they absolutely do. They help focus. They help, with everything, with curriculum choices. And I think you were saying when we talked the other day, like, it makes you not afraid to throw away the curriculum that's not working, because it's that curriculum is there to serve you, not for you to serve it. And getting all the lessons done, it might feel good, especially depending, your personality is going to dictate to a big extent how you homeschool. But, you don't get a lollipop at the end of the curriculum. It's there to serve you. And if you finish it all, but don't move yourself towards your long-term overall goals, what did it really do for you? So that's where, it does certainly help make decisions, to have those goals. So I, like this past year, I had, my son was in 9th grade. So first year of high school, this is where a lot of parents start to panic, college, right? And my daughter's in 7th grade. And of course we have a toddler running around. So, it's all kinds of crazy around here.
Right.
But, so I picked math programs that I thought, boy, when I turned on the first lessons or the intro and the how-tos of these video math programs, different for each of my kids, I thought, oh, these are great matches to their personalities, to their style of learning. I'm like, this is going to be the best math year ever. And they started down the road of them. And I think my son got maybe 2/3 of the way through the math curriculum. And my daughter, maybe halfway, because she really does everything she can to avoid math.
Right.
And so, I think of it in terms of my goals were those traditional school goals. If I was still in that mindset and my son didn't finish Algebra 1 his freshman year of high school, and my daughter wasn't ready for pre-algebra next year, I'd be panicking. I'd think I had failed. But when I look at it in terms of, it took them so long because they persevered. Because when they hit something they didn't understand, they stepped back and we looked everywhere we could to figure it out. Or we just took a break and gave them a brain break. And then they came back and conquered it. And the qualities that is developing are the long-term goals I'm headed towards. So, finishing Algebra 1 freshman year of high school wasn't as important to me as, will they persevere and will they work at something even though it doesn't come easily from the get-go. And, so
well,
Matt,
I'm sorry, and I don't want to interrupt you because who's on, I have two of my kids are teenagers and they're both, actually I have 3 teenagers in the house, but one of them, same kind of thing where his goal, the stack on top of the goal that we're working with him is for him to become an expert help seeker. Now, that doesn't quantify getting through chapter, 17 in an Algebra 2 book. Instead, when he bumps into an issue, it's where do you go for help? Because he too, they do the middle teenagers do concurrent enrollment. So they're at the local college where they're getting high school and college together. But what they do is that if they bump into an issue, they go first to the professor and they seek out her office hours or his office hours. And then they go to, tutor centers, and then they go to classmates. And at the then YouTube, and then at the far end of the, totem pole is mom. And with math, because I don't want to talk about quadratic equations.
Right.
I just don't, but I can. But the goal then becomes becoming an expert help seeker. And I tell my kids that, at the end of the day, I don't care as much how you do in your classes, as long as you're moving towards being someone that can find help, because everything in life will require that. You will need help figuring out where to get your oven repaired, or how to buy a new car, or fill in the blank. The homeschool goals can be abstract like that, becoming an expert help seeker. On the subject specific side, like with math, our homeschool goal is that our kids will know their math facts inside and out by the time they graduate high school. And what I mean by math facts, it's that arithmetic stuff, the stuff they will touch, decimals, percentages, fractions, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, those types of things that are necessary. And then when it comes to the higher maths, we'll deal with that later in high school, but I'm more interested in that foundational math. But with that goal of understanding your fundamental math, now you look at your curriculum and you go, does this fit the bill? Does this lesson on, reading or converting liters to kiloliters, does that mesh with the goal? And then if it does, then I always ask myself, do I know how to do this? Because if I do, I can teach it without the book. I can teach it without the lesson. Or I can give them a dry erase marker and have them do the lesson on the windows rather than the curriculum itself. So you and I were talking about that the beauty of having homeschool goals, and we both have freebies for you. Laina will talk about hers and I will talk about mine at the end, but you can get those by just saying just something about freebies, and we'll make sure you get the links to those. But the beauty of having homeschool goals is that it gives you, it takes the pressure off. You can breathe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So if you get out of the gate and trip, it doesn't mean the race is over, because you still got a long way to go. And there is nobody you're trying to beat. You're in this on your own. So, the long-term goals, like you said, sometimes those more abstract goals are a little hard to break down in terms of, well, what does that mean about where my kid is at the end of 6th grade or 8th grade or 10th grade, but some thought, it definitely, and this is something I'm still currently working out and studying and trying to read all I can about, but it's starting to kind of come together. Like when I say, we want our kids to be self-sufficient, they need to learn how to cook, and they need, so by the end of 8th grade, they need to make their own lunches. My oldest is working at a summer camp all summer. When he comes home, my middle child and I have talked about adjusting chores so that she starts to take some of the chores that have been his, and he's going to be responsible for dinners most nights because mom is busy with blogging and all that stuff. So, so we work our way backwards, and, by the end of such and such a year, or by their age XYZ, we want them to have experiences in different things. And, what our motto, not only goals, but our homeschool motto is don't close any doors. So, I know my oldest is not excited about taking biology in high school, but I know you're not excited about it now, but don't close that door. If it's a whole lot easier to be introduced to it now so that you can study it later if you need to. So, however, the goal of just, being well-rounded and setting himself up so that he can go out and make choices and be self-sufficient and figure out where he wants to go. So I'm not going to choose an intense biology curriculum for
Right.
him, because really, okay, let's just not close that door by exposing you to it. So, get an understanding, a general understanding, a baseline, a foundation that you can build on later,
Right.
Um,
We do what are called surveys of learning, so that because the kids are still deciding, go figure, at 13 and 15, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up. That's okay. But
yeah, totally.
it's not about, we don't spend the time to memorize all the vocabulary and all the nitty gritties of the things. Instead, we're looking for, I call them broad strokes. Like what are the big broad strokes here? Like with biology, about, how do scientists work? They work to figure out ways that they can break things down and they can make sense of them. So they categorize them, but the categories are not perfect and they can change over time. So, we talk about categories, we talk about what those different things are and what basic characteristics are. But we don't dive deep into the vocabulary as much as we might say, okay, when you look at the vocabulary, can you see what language all of these words are made of? And they'll say things like, yeah, it looks like Latin, it looks like Greek. So, okay, well, maybe if we study those root words, you can actually you can pick through them easier. So we have active dialogues with the kids about, what does this thing mean? What's the purpose? What can you get out of biology when you don't give a rip about prokaryotes, eukaryotes, or what a protist is? Who wants to talk about bacteria for 6 weeks? I don't. But I do have a son that does, because he could get drawn. He loves that microscopic stuff. So, but even with him, I have to grab him by the reins and say, okay, slow down just for a bit. Get your brush stroke, and so that you can get a good 360 of what's going on. And then when you're in college or you're studying it later, then you can dive deep and then you can learn like all those fun words, but you'll have a solid foundation to stand on. So super, super, super important. But I love that. I love not worrying so much about the curriculum. I love what you said. Don't close any doors. That's huge to teach our kids. I mean, in the olden days, you would say things that don't judge a book by its cover, right? It's the same kind of thing. Yeah. Don't judge a subject or a discipline by the fact that you don't. I would have my kids search for, if they didn't want to do something, I'd say, okay, you have to search for 3 pieces of information, 2 boring pieces of information, and 1 interesting piece of information. So then they were all in, like, oh, this is boring. That's boring. Oh, I didn't know this. And so that was interesting too. So
no, that's a fun way to tackle that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So as we're talking about goals, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So, but I had a thought. The last interview that I did was on soft skills. Soft skills are those intangible things, and they're the types of things that as you are establishing your homeschool goals, that these soft skills should be built in a way. Soft skills, things that kids should know, like excellent communication skills. But that's hard to quantify. Yeah. You might, as a homeschooler, you might say, oh my goodness, I need to teach my child how to write a 5-paragraph essay, but I don't like to write. But from the soft skill side, it might be more, anytime you have something to write, step back and think about, well, who is your audience? Who is this piece of writing for? What kind of vocabulary will that audience already know? And how can you explain new vocabulary in a way so they can follow you? And then what is the purpose of that writing? Is it to inform? Is it to entertain?
Oh, yeah.
And so when you step back and you go, okay, when I look at it this way, it's not as daunting as, okay, a first paragraph should contain a thesis statement and a hook and, all those types of things.
And writing is a really good example, because that for me was super intimidating to teach because I don't remember why I write the way I write, but
Right.
I just do. And it's gotten me through life just fine.
Right.
I would say, maybe a little better than fine in terms of writing. But it is really, really hard, especially for my oldest, but both my kids so far, have struggled with it. And we've tried curriculum after curriculum after curriculum, and still with the end goal in mind that, like you said, you want them to be good communicators. And I finally decided, you know what, none of these are really working for us. So in the, what did serve me well in terms of where did my writing style come from, or where did my communication style come from, and what didn't. And, how can I give them if I want them to be real life communicators, then how in our real life can we weave that into, writing? So,
Right.
since I've started the website, the Triangle Homeschool Resources, my daughter actually does a good bit of, she does my Pinterest, she does, some of my Instagram for me. She helps me with like Facebook posts. And so she's learning really modern, very relevant communication skills. And she started her own Etsy shop. She's, real creative. She has to write all her descriptions and, so she's kind of learning what works, what attracts people, what gets the message across in this little bit that somebody's going to pay attention to, and with my oldest down to filling out a job application and going on an interview. Right. I mean, it was really trial by fire. He had not done very much writing for me at home before that. And bam, he's into it, So sometimes you just kind of got to look at, but again, with that long-term goal in mind of, well, what am I really trying to get out of writing curriculum, or what am I really trying to get out of these assignments?
Right.
Is it serving that long-term goal of good communication? And, in terms of reading and analysis, I want them to be critical thinkers. So when we're reading, how am I encouraging them to respond to it that brings out that, critical thinking? It's not that I just have a book list of things I want them to get through because this is what American high school students read. It's really, is it going to serve, is the response going to serve our critical thinking skills? So in that sense, that's where you take those long-term goals and break them down and say, is my curriculum a tool that's getting me toward that? Or, do I need to really shift my thinking on it? So.
Right. That is so important. And, I was thinking about something just to encourage, on the writing, kind of a rabbit trail. Out of our 5 sons, our youngest didn't read until he was over 10. And I like to share that publicly because that does not mean I'm a failure as a homeschool mom. It meant that his light bulbs didn't come on. But with writing, I never had any of my kids do formal writing until 8th grade. Now I'm very different. Everybody's different. So what works for me may not work for other people, but we read aloud. The boys read to each other. And we talked a lot about the magic of allowing the written word to just marinate over you and how important that was. So about 4 months ago, maybe, I'm sitting next to my 13-year-old who was the delayed reader at 10. He asked me, "Hey, Mom, can I write?" And I said, "Sure." So he pulled up a laptop and he sat next to me on the sofa. And he's ticking away while I'm watching some important thing like America's Got Talent or something. We're just watching TV. And I happened to go like this and I happened to look at the screen and I start to read. And I went, "When did you learn how to write? When did you learn how to spell? Buddy." So I take it and I handed the laptop. I took it away from him and I handed it to my husband. And I said, "Read this." And my husband looks at me like, "When did he learn what?" And now he didn't learn to read till he was 10. He's dyslexic and he is the reason he's last out of our 5 kids is because God knew there needed to be 6 of us to watch him, to keep him alive through his childhood. So I looked at his writing, and what he had done was he had a document open. Then he had a thesaurus open. He had installed Grammarly, which is a thing that lets you know that you're making spelling and grammar mistakes. And he had another page open for medieval terminology of nobility titles. So he had all these resources open, and he had written something that was gripping right from the get-go. And I thought, okay, he didn't read till he was 10. I never used a formal writing at all. I never had him do anything except journal with the words, I'm never going to grade your spelling. Just write. All I want you to do is write. Nobody sits down and looks at a blank piece of paper and pounds out something beautiful. It's a process. So just write. And what ended up happening with him was that he was so marinated in language and never hung up by decoding words, that he has become this masterful writer just because he was exposed to excellent literature. And it's just a word of encouragement that, that you don't need to think, oh, I need to teach my child 3rd grade reading, grammar, and writing and handwriting necessarily, as much as if you have that long-term goal of, I want my child to be an excellent writer in the written form, then you can kind of tweak what they do, whatever works for your family along the way. So it's encouraging to see when you step back too, because if my goal was 3rd grade literature, 3rd grade writing, 2nd grade writing, 1st grade writing, it would have been fail.
Yeah.
And instead it's succeed. And I don't know, just, it's amazing. So
it is. They do. It is amazing. Like, their abilities come out and their passions come out when you kind of give them a little freedom. And like you said, don't set yourself up for failure, and don't set your kids up for failure either, because it just makes, I hate to see homeschoolers quit because they feel like they failed. Homeschooling doesn't work. And it's really just, try something different, change their mindset about it. And same thing. Like, we would have gone through thinking fail. And, I decided, we'll figure it out. We'll have an opportunity. I just have to stop thinking about it in terms of he needs to be here, and here, in terms of actual putting pen to paper skills, and thought more of it in terms of, can he fill out a job application someday? And can he, do those kind of things? And so we didn't do formal writing at home either for a very long time. And my son's been going to summer camp for a couple of years now, and I think it was 2 years ago, so he would have been in 7th, 8th grade. My husband sent me a picture from summer camp, and this notebook with a full page of writing, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Our kid wrote that. He wrote that." He was so motivated to get whatever merit badge it was, where he had to give a 5-minute speech. And he sat and he wrote it out. He got up, and he's also very shy, and like talking to other people is not one of his favorite things to do, but he did it, and he did it well. And, so it's, me wanting him to do what he's comfortable with and take his strengths and run with it and just have that confidence. I didn't want to keep pounding on the writing, because I knew he'd start to feel like he just couldn't do it and he was a failure. And by just kind of like backing off, because, my goal is not to have a Shakespeare, but, like, I just want him to be able to use it for wherever he's headed.
Right.
And then he found, when I need it, I'm going to use it. And, it worked. So.
Well, and that all goes back to having that goal of teaching kids how to find. I always tell my kids there's only 2 kinds of information. There are only 2. What you know off the top of your head. and what you don't know.
Yeah.
So your trick is, where do you find that information? So if I wanted to cook a wedding cake, which I don't know how to make a wedding cake, where would I go? If
Right.
I need a repair person for my oven, I've used that example twice because my oven is broken. But if I needed an oven repair person, where would I go? If I need my dog trained, where would I go? So you either know it or you need to know where to find it.
Right.
So once they know that, then they can step back and go, okay, I don't know how to fill in the blank, but I think I could find that information, fill in the blank. And then it's empowering to kids because I don't have my phone. It's plugged in somewhere else. They live in a smartphone.
Oh, yeah.
Smart thing. So everything is, Siri, how do you spell Parasaurolophus? Or, what is the, comparison, or what can I replace olive oil with in a recipe? It's right here and in the palm of their hand. And so to let them know it's okay to say the words, I don't know, but if I do this, then I can either learn or I can find that piece of information. It's empowering. So
totally. And, funny story about kids and finding information in the palm of their hand. My toddler is, of course, obsessed with everything with an engine and wheels, right? So lawnmowers in particular are his favorite thing in the world. Right. And ever since he could sit up and sit at the front door and watch our oldest, mow the front lawn. But anyway, so my husband often sits him on his knee in the evening when they need to kill a couple minutes, and they watch these like repair videos on YouTube of like some guy fixing his machinery and his lawnmowers. Well, I had to make a stop at Home Depot one day. We're walking past the lawnmowers. I turned my back, and as I turned back around, there's my 3-year-old with the hood up on a lawnmower, unscrewing something at Home Depot. So I'm not.
That's way better than going potty on a toilet in the middle of Home Depot. Right?
I'm not worried about him being a self-starter. I think he's gonna just dig in there and do it. But
that's huge, and that is totally homeschooling. Right there, that watching the videos, that's huge.
Oh,
okay, so as we've been on for, I could talk to you for hours. I can tell. Okay. So my favorite Bible teacher says, as we descend the plane, so as we come down for landing, you and I both have stuff to help homeschoolers establish their homeschool goals. So, what is your webinar and how? So it's to help. Tell me about your webinar that you have, and then we'll talk about how people can get the link to it. So that, because it's free, but I want everybody to have access to it. So first, tell me, what is it in the webinar?
Yeah, so it's a lot of what we talked about tonight. Or today, I guess, in your time zone. So it's, talking about breaking free of that traditional school mindset. What does that look like? And I think the other resource that you can tell people about are the downloads. They are linked both from the webinar and in the email where they'll find the webinar.
Right.
That, I find is, I call it finding your inner homeschooler. So it asks some leading questions to kind of help you pull out those long-term goals. What are the non-traditional, non-academic things that, you want to set as long-term goals that are really going to help you stay the path?
Right.
So the webinar, you can go to my website, trianglehomeschoolresources.com, and sign up for the mailing list. If you don't get a pop-up, there's a little sign up right there in the sidebar on the right. Yep, right there.
I have a free printable for everybody. So if you guys want this, I'll actually add it to the comments above. When you go to her site, trianglehomeschoolresources.com, her website will kind of look like this. And you can click on this when you look at it on your screen. Right over here is where you drop your email to get that to get the link to the free webinar. Right, Laina?
Yes, ma'am. Right there.
And then in the email, they'll get a message. This is part of the email message right here. And then there's a link when you open your email. It'll be right here, and that's where you link, and it'll open it up to the webinar. But this is what I have for you, so that it makes it easy for you to find what we're talking about.
Yeah. Grab the printable, everybody, because that's going to be super helpful.
Okay, so they get that, they get the email, so they click,
Mhm.
and it's like 47-minute webinar.
Yep.
So babies to bed and brew a cup of tea.
Yeah, totally. And break it up. There's slides. So if there's a particular, if you want to know more about how to break it down, like 10 years from now, 5 years from now, so what does that mean? Do I do this year? And slide through till you see that slide, and
Right.
and pull out that part. So, and I do that a lot with a lot of other webinars where I'm like, oh, I need this part right now, and I'm going to go back and watch that later. And I
Right.
pick through them as I need them, because you need what's foremost in your mind when you need it. So,
right. And then I'd encourage, especially if you're new to homeschooling, to create a bookmark on your laptop for homeschool resources, and have linked to, when you fall in love with somebody like Lainey over here at Triangle Homeschool Resources, you want to bookmark her page because she has amazing resources. And so as you're finding people, I don't know if you're as busy as I am, but I can't remember whether or not I ate anything today. I really can't. My tummy's telling me, Becky, you did not eat anything today, but I don't know if that's true. So to be able to find the link later, you'll want to create a bookmark so that you can find it. And then the thing that I have for everybody is a free video series, very similar. You click on there and it brings you, and it's like yours, but it's broken into chunks that get delivered to, it's like an automated thing that comes to your inbox over the course of a few days. Same kind of thing, where both Lainey and I are giving you tools that will help you, because it's foreign. This whole world of homeschooling can be overwhelming, and everybody out there, it seems, is like, well, what curriculum are you using? What grade are your kids in? Can they read? Can they write? Oh, they're only 3? Well, can they read? Can they write? It's like, back up and get a glimpse of where you're headed first, and it'll set you up for homeschooling success in the future all the way through, because every single one of us has fantastic days and really hard days. And when you're looking at the curriculum and then you have a really hard day on top of it, you're like, that's it. When is the school bus coming? Because I'm putting
exactly. Yeah, I did that every year for a while. And it's a growing process, like I think everybody's got to grow through that somewhere. But if you find resources, like you're offering, and I hope that I can help provide that, and find some good mentors, find good people you can reach out to and talk to, and kind of save yourself the pain of having to grow through that slowly.
Yeah. So because you want to help homeschoolers. I want to help homeschoolers. Your hair is not as gray as my hair is hiding underneath here. I have like a wild gray streak. So
that's okay.
You've been homeschooling 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been homeschooling 20. And I have one that's married and off. I have one that is a year away from his bachelor's degree in college for screenwriting. I have one that's a year away from earning his high school diploma and his associate's degree. I have my 15-year-old and my 13-year-old still actively at my kitchen table. And I still remember how overwhelming it was that first year. That second year, it's like you almost have to just survive your first year of homeschooling and just see, okay, well, what didn't work? This doesn't mean I can't do it. Don't listen to your family or anybody that's telling me, oh, you shouldn't homeschool. It's way too hard. Your kids are going to be weird. Well, I don't know, but my kids were destined to be weird because they're my kids. Like, hello. Right? They're amazing. So, anyway, so, okay, before we say goodbye, let me flip through, because I've been popping people up. So let me just see if we missed any questions. So first of all, everybody that's been out here, we are thrilled that you joined us, and we pray, I pray that you would join us on Facebook for all of these interviews, but go visit Laina at her Facebook page. So your Facebook page is Triangle Homeschool Resources, right?
Yes.
And so go over there, like her page. And make sure you hook up for notifications. That way you see what she's doing. So that would be good. A bunch of people asking for notes. I'm looking for questions. Okay, so here's one from Sandy. She says, my oldest son wants to go in the medical field and he's starting high school this year. I don't have any idea what to start him with, but he's behind in school. Has a hard time staying focused. Where do I start? What do you think?
What do I think? Well, I mean, if he has an interest in medicine, number one, reach out to your family doctor, your neighborhood nurse, and see if they can kind of chat with him, or he can go in and tour the hospital or the doctor's office, to kind of really start giving him questions to ask. And in pursuit of answering those questions, he'll start to get the education that he needs in that background. And you'll find like, oh, we can answer that with this biology curriculum, or, and then you're doing the biology curriculum or the chemistry curriculum and you need a little bit of math. Well, let's go get on Khan Academy and learn that math. So, you can tie it all in. It doesn't have to be linear the way the schools are.
Right.
And, but start by asking questions. What is it about the medical field? In the webinar, I actually address, give the example of somebody who wants to go into medicine and maybe, they fail organic chem twice. And so, it looks like an MD is not in my future. If you have the long-term goal of, it's because I like to help people, it's because I want to solve these, problems with biology or disease or whatever, or I'm really interested in how epidemiology happens and how diseases spread, then you haven't failed at reaching your goal of being a doctor. You've only closed that door, and you can find another path to getting what you want. So when we learn to ask the right questions and find the answers, like you were saying, that's a great place to start.
Well, and I love what you said. I love the suggestion of, no matter whether it's a doctor or a football player or a physical therapist or whatever, getting your child in front of people in that field and to start that dialogue, even with questions like, what kinds of things should I know? What kinds of questions should I be asking? Right. And to realize that, failing organic chemistry twice does not mean that they can't be a doctor. It just may mean that they need different kinds of assistance to get through. They may need tutors. They may need to pay extra, to do extra things. They may need to study harder, whatever those, they may need to study Latin so they can break down the words, or whatever those things are. And backing up with our children to teach them how to make and establish their goals too. I was in a homeschool conference where I was listening to Carrie Beck, and I forgot to look. Do you know her blog? I can't remember what her blog is called off the top of my head. Carrie Beck, she said, ask your kids this question. What is it that you want to do? And how can I help you get there? And so I asked my 13-year-old dyslexic guy, okay, I said, what do you want to do right now? Okay, you're not set in stone. You're only 13, but what do you think you want to do when you grow up? And I didn't get the question off my tongue before he said, I want to be a Navy pilot. I said, okay, what do you need from me to help you achieve those goals? And he said, gosh darn it, I think I need more math. And I think I need to do some research on what it takes to get into the Naval Academy. I don't know how far I need to go in school before I can apply. I don't know what age. So I think I need to look at those things. Is that something we can do? And I'm like, absolutely. But had I not asked that question, I would never have even known that that's what he wanted to do. And I would never have known that he's already been thinking about this. He already knows, okay, I want to do this, but I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how far I need to go. I don't know at what point I can start pursuing it. So it's asking those types of questions. What do you want to do? And how can I help you get there? I asked another son, what do you want to do? He said, I want to open an online shop. I want to open an online classroom teaching people how to play the guitar. And I said, okay, what can I do to help you do that? And he goes, oh, Mom, you already know, we've been talking about this. You can share what you do with me in a way that in bite-sized pieces so I can start to do it. I said, absolutely. So then I was able to give him, his first assignment for him to do. But teaching kids to make their own goals or think about what their goals are is a huge life skill. It gives them such a leg up on, the competition in the future. So,
and there's definitely something to, what can you do right now that is at your level, but that gets you toward that goal. So the kid in medicine, I don't know, when I was young, way back when, we used to do the volunteering at the hospital. They called it candy stripers or whatever,
Yeah.
So things like that, go out and do it and see, my oldest loves like crazy exotic cars. And I keep saying to him, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? If that's your passion, what are you going to do with that? And he still doesn't know, but right now his first step was, well, I'm going to start an Instagram account talking about, and connect with people that are into these same kind of vehicles and same kind of shows and stuff that he is. So
smart.
It was just, it's about networking. It's what are they doing with it? And what's their background? How did they get there?
Right.
I'll just be creative, take advantage of the time that, they're not sitting in a classroom 8 hours a day. So take advantage of that extra time they have to go out and volunteer or go out and job shadow or whatever.
Well, and before we wrap up, just that closing idea, that closing truth, that takes the place of homeschooling lessons. Those conversations, those types of exercises can take the place of writing or math or whatever for the day. They don't have to do 7 subjects plus job shadow plus do online research.
Because getting them for that long-term goal where you don't have to make it all about the curriculum, right? It's really ultimately about life.
So. Okay, so backing up and wrapping up, and then backing up. So this is Laina with Triangle Homeschool Resources. I love what you said, that focus on goals. Don't close any doors, right? So that don't just turn your nose to something just because it doesn't sound good. To listen to what it is that your kids are interested in and find a way to encourage them to pursue those things, like your son getting job interviews, writing resumes, your daughter doing her Etsy shop, which we want to know what her Etsy shop is. So,
it's so it's linked from my website. It's Kate and Lainey, just the letter N, Lainey or Etsy.
Say it again. So what is it?
Kate, Kate, N, the letter N, Lainey.
At
that's the name of the Etsy shop. I don't. It's like Etsy.com/shop/ whatever.
We'll find it. So
that's it.
So understanding that when you do something like that with Etsy, that actually qualifies as high school credit. That kinds of things. If you spend 60 hours learning something, that's half a credit in high school.
And and actually we learned Abby Banks is Homeschooling with Moxie.
Yes.
That was her class that got us to that point. So I have, our whole experience with that on my blog. And it's been, even though she was in 7th grade, she went through it and she just said to me, Mom, I think now that she understands what Etsy is, she thinks she wants to kind of work back through it again. And now, hey, yeah, that's going to be half a high school credit right there.
Right. And I actually have had, can you post that? Sandy, I will get the link to her store. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about Abby's class? So I have a whole thing on electives that I can share that has Abby. So I can make sure. Do you have a specific blog post that talks about Abby's?
I do. It's like, do you have a creative teen? And
okay, so I will add to that. Do you have a creative
the Selling on
Okay.
Etsy Masterclass.
Okay. Absolutely, Sandy. I will make sure that the link to the post that has Abby's class in it. I also have another post on my site too that has classes that qualify for homeschool electives. With my youngest son, I make and sell printables on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I have for years. And so my son had an interest in that, and he's actually created and sold printables. And I have a whole class too that does the same thing. So if where you can teach your kids how to do the make and sell printables, and both with Abby's class on Etsy or the printables class, the kids are learning real life skills that are applicable today in this world, right? Setting up business, how to write descriptions that sell, taking picture, all those things, so applicable. So I'll make sure to grab the link to that. And then, so I'm going to encourage everybody to take your webinar. And I haven't had it. I saw it. I subscribed to it today, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So I'm excited to see your webinar. I'm inviting everybody for my Homeschooling with Grace and Confidence as well. And then if anybody has any questions, you just keep linking them down here, and then we'll answer them as we see them. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Do not go away, Lainey, but you guys all, thank you so much for joining us here. If you've liked this interview, you will love the interviews that we've already done with Sarah Mueller and Anna Willis and with Lisa Nearing. And we have an interview a week or two coming all through the rest of the summer. So I hope you join us. And if you really loved it, it would bless us both if you share them around. So we're trying to reach as many homeschoolers as possible in order to encourage them, because this homeschooling thing you don't need to do it on your own, right? There are people like us that are a little bit further down the road that are more than willing to share what we know. So we hope that you enjoyed this, and I will see you out here on A Better Way to Homeschool another time. The next interview is Monday at the same bat time, same bat channel. And I'm super excited to see you then too. So thank you for joining us. And Laina, you were amazing, and we'll see you later. Bye.